Okay, can you hear now? Hello. Okay, all right, so thank you for fixing that. Okay, thanks, bye-bye. All right, hello all, sorry for the technical difficulties. I think we're all back on track, so I'll go ahead and get started. So today I'll be addressing some of the questions that you guys asked in the discussion forums. I will be looking off to the side a lot to my laptop because I took notes just to make sure that I could answer your questions accurately. So we'll just go ahead and get started. So many of you requested that I discuss various diets. I want to make a disclaimer first that I would never recommend anybody to follow a specific diet, especially without doing a nutrition assessment. It's really important to at least talk to your doctor before you start a diet, particularly if it's very restrictive, and ideally a dietitian, just to make sure that you're getting everything that you need. For most people, eating based on my plate recommendations would meet their needs and work well. Details are available in this week's set of videos on healthy eating. And most Americans, at least, do not meet these recommendations. So based on a USDA report of 2014, Americans on average consumed too much protein foods, so like eggs, meat, and nuts, and grains, and then not enough fruits, vegetables, and low-fat dairy. Also added sugar recommendations, so the sugar that's not naturally found in fruits, cheeses, or grains is only 2 to 3 tablespoons, which is 6 to 9 teaspoons, which most people often exceed without even realizing it. So for example, there are about 2.5 tablespoons of sugar in one 12-ounce can of Coke. To see how your country compares, you can look at the World Health Organization or WHO's website. And so even just trying to meet those recommendations and moving your diet a little bit closer to there could make a big difference for you. And so now before I get into all of these different diets and things, I did write down all of these. Oh, shoot, it's backwards. Oh, well, so I'll give you a series. There are 5 websites here that I find are really helpful for getting accurate diet information. So I'll post a link to all of these in the discussion board for the first Google Hangout. But they are the USDA Food and Nutrition Information Center, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, nutrition.gov, which is run through USDA. And then for anything exercise related, the American College of Sports Medicine, and then also the World Health Organization. So if you want some really good reputable information, those are all really good sources to go to. So now we're started on the diets you guys asked about. And so the first one is the diabetes diet. And so this is actually a really great diet. It's basically just the basic recommendations through the USDA on the My Plate site and wherever else, with an extra emphasis on getting an even amount of carbohydrates throughout the day, as well as not eating carbohydrates without a protein source. And so this helps slow the release of sugar into your blood just to keep a more even level. So what this would look like is putting peanut butter on toast or meat sauce on your pasta. And this is a good suggestion for anyone, just because it helps keep you fuller longer and give you what you need constantly throughout the day. So we'll cover more about diabetes in general in week 7, which is all about chronic disease. And if you want more information specifically on diabetes, you can go to the American Diabetes Association website, which is just www.diabetes.org. So the next diet is the vegetarian and vegan diets. And I don't know if any of you guys have seen it yet, but Dr. Johnston does have a talk on vegetarian diets available under week 2, the nutrient needs macronutrients tab. So she discusses benefits and potential concerns of this type of diet. And the nutrients she mentions that might be limited in a vegetarian diet are selenium and zinc, which nuts are a good source of, vitamin D and calcium, which leafy greens or dairy, if you're just vegetarian, are good sources of. And then just 2 other things that I would consider would be iron and B12, both of which are linked to different types of anemia. And so good vegetarian sources of iron would be beans like pinto, kidney, soybeans, lentils, dark leafy greens, so like spinach, broccoli, things like that, as well as fortified breakfast cereals, which are common here in the States, as well as like enriched rices, whole grains, and other kinds of grains like bread. If you combine good sources of iron, so all the things I mentioned, with good sources of vitamin C in the same meal, it actually makes the iron more bioavailable. So that would be like a bell pepper and bean salad, putting lemon juice on a spinach salad or in cooked spinach, or in the morning eating berries with your fortified breakfast cereal. Good sources of B12 include meat, eggs, dairy, and fortified cereals. So vegetarians may be at risk for B12 deficiency, but it's a much bigger issue for vegans. Just because if you notice in the list that I gave, only fortified cereals are a good source. And so Dr. Johnston does mention in her talk too that it may be a good idea for vegans or vegetarians to take B12 or multivitamin supplements. All right, and then like I mentioned earlier, the USDA Food and Nutrition Information Center, as well as the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics websites, both have a ton of information on how to eat a healthy vegetarian diet, because it is really a healthy, good diet, right? There's more of an emphasis on plant-based foods. It's all based on plant-based foods mostly. And so you have, you're getting way more fiber, a lot more vitamins and nutrients from more fruits and vegetables, if you're following it correctly. As well as lower amounts of saturated fats and other unhealthy fats. So the next one is a raw diet. And so the raw diet is based on the theory that unprocessed raw plant foods that have not been heated above 40 to 49 degrees Celsius or 104 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, including fermented foods, are healthier for you for a variety of reasons that they give online. And so if you do look online, they say the diet's good because some antioxidants and vitamins are lost in the cooking process, and the improved availability of these nutrients decreases inflammation. It also places a high value on fermented foods, which can serve as probiotics. So to a certain degree, that is definitely true, right? And so there are benefits to eating raw foods. But while cooking can break down certain nutrients like vitamin C or the B vitamins, it also makes others like vitamin K and iron more available. Cooking breaks down the tough fibers in vegetables and grains, making them more digestible. And then eating uncooked meats, if that's the way that you were going to go with this diet, carries a certain amount of increased risk for food safety wise, especially if you're eating ground meats. That's not really recommended. And it might be hard to get everything you need with a raw foods diet alone. You may find that you have to eat substantially more to meet your needs. And so again, just to make a point, that doesn't mean that any of the diets, including any of the other ones I'm going to state from now on, are bad diets. Just you want to be careful and make sure that you're doing them correctly. And so these are just some things to consider if you do want to try a raw food diet. Okay, so now we'll go on to the gluten-free diet. And there are individuals with celiac disease, which is a food allergy, which is an autoimmune response to the protein gluten, which is found in wheat, rye, and barley. So they should absolutely follow a gluten-free diet to maintain their health. This condition, however, is fairly rare. What's more common is a gluten intolerance. So food intolerances are less serious and they're not an autoimmune response, but they may result in various kinds of stomach discomfort, like gas or bloating. And you just want to be wary if you're trying to cut out gluten more for an intolerance than for being or then for having celiac disease, just to make sure that you're getting all of the vitamins and especially fiber and things like that are found naturally in gluten type products that we think of, so various grains. And then also you just want to be a little bit weary of gluten-free processed products. Just make sure to always read the label. Gluten is what gives breads and cakes that fluffy texture. Being gluten-free doesn't necessarily mean these products are healthy. In some cases, these foods have added fat and sugar that actually goes above what would be in the normal equivalent of that food to compensate for texture differences that are lost when you take out the gluten. So this one, you just want to make sure that you're not inadvertently eating a less healthy diet when you cut out the grains. And then you can't eat brown rice. So I don't want to say cut out the grains, just cut out the grains with gluten. So then the next diet is the ketogenic diet. This one is a bit controversial. The basis is to drastically reduce carbohydrates to below 20 grams per day, which works out to be a little bit more than one serving of most grains. It's also high in fat and protein. So when you consume this kind of diet, your body uses up all of its glucose stores and then starts breaking down fats. So the byproduct of this process are ketones, like acetate, that can build up in the blood, making it more acidic. If a ketosis diet is followed to the extreme, ketones might build up so high that it can lead to ketoacidosis, which is a potentially life-threatening condition. Other adverse reactions to the diet include nutrient deficiencies, particularly with electrolytes like magnesium and potassium, hypoglycemia, stomach distress, and impaired cognition, among other issues. So again, this is one that you want to be really careful with. So you want to tell your doctor that this is the diet that you're following. And do as much research as you can, discuss it with a dietitian. Just make sure that you're doing it the right way. But it can be safe, and it is recommended for the treatment of epilepsy, especially in children, and has been begun to be studied and used for the treatment of obesity. And so again, this is just one you want to be careful about. Make sure that that you are being supervised while you're following it. Okay, so very related are the paleo-specific carbohydrate diet and autoimmune protocol diets. And so these are also based on the idea of limiting carbohydrates. This one in particular is by cutting out grains and as well as some starchy legumes and vegetables to mimic the diet of our Paleolithic ancestors. So this is before agriculture and industry, and as well as many current diet-related ailments like chronic disease and cavities that we didn't really see until after that period of history. So some people question the validity of the diet just because it calls for cutting out foods such as, so basically it calls for eating foods like meats and vegetables, which are very healthy, right? Or they can be. But on the flip side, people are saying that these meats and vegetables actually look genetically quite different from those eaten by our ancestors. They've been further domesticated. They just look a lot different than those that were eaten thousands of years ago. Physical activity and living conditions are also quite different. And perhaps most importantly, the diet is very restrictive, making it more difficult to get what you need from food alone or to follow it for a long period of time. And so again, if this is one that you want to follow, just talk to your doctor. Just make sure that you're doing it correctly, that you're getting everything you need, that you're not having any problems with any kind of nutrient deficiencies. Okay, so that was pretty much it for all of the diets that people had questions about. And now we'll move on to a few other types of questions. And so the first one was about, are organic foods actually better? So the USDA, so the United States Department of Agriculture, has established an organic certification program that requires that all organic foods meet certain standards on how they're grown, handled, and processed. Farmers are prohibited from using most chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides, which is great for the environment, right, and our exposure to these chemicals. Present research shows that organic food is not more nutritious, so it doesn't have any more vitamins and minerals necessarily than conventional foods. However, there are still plenty of good reasons to buy organic foods, especially if they're local. So again, there's huge environmental reasons why you would want to do that, and then you're not getting those chemicals that you may not be fully washing off when you get the produce home. And so the reason why local is so important is because when produce is picked when ripe and spends less time in transit, sitting in the store, your refrigerator before eating, they tend to be tastier, and they're also more nutritious. Some of the vitamins, especially vitamin C, it's a very unstable vitamin, may break down the longer that the food goes from being picked to being eaten. And again, this is generally speaking. There are a lot of other factors, like just the quality of the soil and many other things. All right, and so the next question was about superfoods. And so superfoods is also a hard one because that's not a clearly defined word, what counts as a superfood. Most things that people refer to as superfoods are fruits and vegetables. And so eating foods from all food groups and from across, we call it the rainbow of vegetables. So red and orange fruits and vegetables, yellow and white, dark green, and blue-purple will help ensure that you get all the nutrients that you need. Somebody had mentioned if there's any advantages to any kind of specific timing to maximize the effect of the superfoods when you're eating them. And I'm not aware of there being any research that goes to show that that is proven effective. My general impression is that labeling something as a superfood is mostly good marketing, right? And if that helps you eat more fruits and vegetables, then there's nothing wrong with that at all. The one issue that I might have with that is just that some of these foods that are touted as superfoods are much more expensive and harder to find. So like, for example, I did some research a little while ago on the nutritional value of acai and goji berries, and they aren't that much different than any other kind of berries. So eating blueberries or raspberries. And so instead of searching out those more expensive, harder to find foods, you can eat ones that are local and that have a very similar nutrient profile. Okay, so now we'll move on to supplements. And this is another very large topic and can refer to a great many things. So you can look up specific questions, particularly on nutrition.gov. Before taking any vitamins or minerals or supplements, again, please discuss this with your doctor. People think of them as natural and safe, but there are a lot of drug-nutrient interactions as well as drug-herb interactions. And so just to make sure that that nothing unsafe is going on, it's just a good idea to check with your doctor. And when you do go to the doctor and they ask you what medicines you're taking, please also tell them what supplements. So that being said, there are two general types of supplements. So there's vitamins and minerals, and then there's herbals. And so, the most common one is a multivitamin, which may be a good idea just to help you fill in the gaps of your diet if any exist. You may have gaps in your diet just from consuming a poor diet, so just not getting quite the balance that is recommended through My Plate. If you're pregnant, or if you're vegan, if you're following any of those other diets that are very restrictive, hey, I'm doing something. Can you guys get out of here? Sorry, those are my nieces. that may put you at risk for nutrient deficiency. So individual vitamins can be a concern since taking one can interfere with the absorption of another. So like calcium can inhibit the absorption of iron. I end up talking about this a lot in my job at WIC because we see a lot of small children that are drinking like 6 cups of milk a day that have low iron levels. And so the calcium in the milk or wherever you're getting it from can bind the iron, and then you end up just excreting it. Consuming too much zinc can also interfere with copper absorption. And there are many other examples of things like that. So if you're taking, calcium supplements alone, zinc supplements alone, just be careful and, and try to get your iron and your other vitamin levels checked on a fairly regular basis just to make sure everything's good. So then there are the herbal supplements. So those are teas, tinctures, and pills. You may have heard of things like CoQ10, Dong Quai, or St. John's wort. These ones are even more concerning than the vitamin ones, just as far as drug-herb interactions and things like that go. So for example, St. John's wort can increase the effect of drugs with sedative effects. And so you could overdose by taking the recommended amount of the drug if you're also taking St. John's wort. So that's a bit of a concern. Black cohosh, which is generally taken for symptoms from menopause, may enhance the liver toxicity of certain other medications. And so again, we often think of supplements as natural and harmless, in a part of your diet, and maybe not something that you need to mention to your doctor or to be mindful of, but they can have negative consequences. So just be sure if you can to check in about those. All right. So the next one is about cleanses and detoxes. And so this is another topic that's really hard. Just to get an idea of what people specifically mean by a cleanse. There's a wide variety of things that get included within that category. And so there are certain cleanses that claim to be able to pull toxins from your body. Toxins are filtered out of your body through your liver and kidneys. So drinking plenty of water, limiting caffeine, alcohol, excess sodium and sugar in your diet, as well as getting plenty of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, will help your organs function well and have things moving through your system at a good pace. And so basically just following general diet recommendations will keep everything working effectively. There isn't anything specific that I would say that would help you more or less. A lot of people will talk about with the liver, dark leafy greens, which is again just part of the normal dietary recommendations, and that could be useful to you. So that may be something that you would want to think about. But just increasing those as many fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and again limiting the caffeine, alcohol, excess sodium, and sugar is what's going to be really effective. I would not recommend juice cleanses, which are pretty popular at the moment. There is no evidence that I could find anyway that they work. And they also tend to be very high in sugar. So some juice cleanses sold online that I found have between 70 and 200 grams of sugar a day if you follow exactly what they tell you to take. And this is nearly 3 to 8 times the recommended daily amount of sugar. So this is not something that you might want to think twice before you do that one. Cleansing teas often have senna in them, which is a natural laxative. So while this will help, will help you go to the bathroom, it'll help relieve a little pressure there. It's not going to help you more efficiently filter out toxins. Okay, so then the next topic was all about motivation. And this was covered in week 1 with making SMART goals, so the specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based goals, both in the short term and in the long term. And so defining these goals properly can be hard. Many people find it helpful to start off with small goals that you can easily meet. For example, adding 10 minutes of walking to your day may be a better place to start than setting a goal of working out an hour a day at the gym, if you haven't been doing any physical activity at all. For some, the goal may be just to gain more information from your doctor. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a specific behavior. It's just anything that helps move you farther along in the process towards being able to achieve your long-term goals. So, and then also just in consideration of motivation, I took a behavior change class last year, and we had to do this really interesting exercise throughout the course of the class. And so we had to choose a behavior that we wanted to change. So first of all, we had to identify something that we felt like we needed to change. And so for instance, this could be bringing your lunch to work or school instead of buying it. And so, for many reasons, because it's generally healthier, it'll save you money, right? So then we had to take notes on what was happening in our lives that made it so that we weren't accomplishing that goal already. We weren't already doing it. And so, for example, with bringing your lunch, you may not be thinking about lunch until the morning, you wake up too late, and then you just don't make it. So then we brainstormed solutions and then had to choose one solution and test it out. So again, using the example I discussed, part of the reason why a person might not be bringing their lunch is that, or a solution, I'm sorry. So a potential solution to not bringing your lunch might be to cook all of your meals on Sundays. So they're all prepared, they're already in the fridge. You could prepare your lunches the night before, or you can wake up earlier, right, to make your lunch then. And so let's say you chose to wake up earlier, and then you would monitor how often you actually did wake up earlier, and if this led you to make your lunch more often. So if it didn't work, then you could try something else. And so it's this process of doing small experiments and of really trying to get at the heart of what the problem is and what is keeping you from accomplishing your goal. And so, most of the things that we set out to do in class, with our solutions, the solution wasn't actually addressing the real reason why we weren't following that behavior. And so most of us were unsuccessful. But if you follow this kind of a pattern where you're testing out these different types of solutions, then first of all, if it fails, then it hasn't really failed, right? You haven't really failed. You've been able to gain more knowledge about yourself and about what really works for you, what really motivates you, what keeps you from accomplishing your goals. And so I just felt like that was a really effective, great way, at least for me, to end up making successful long-term goals, because I was able to really address what my actual problems were. And so if anybody wants to try out that, I think it's very useful. At least it was for me. So then I was looking online, and there were a few new questions that were on there that just from yesterday that I didn't get a chance to look over. And so I'll just see what a couple of them are now. Okay, and so one is asking, is it correct to eat green, unprocessed vegetables at the beginning of every meal in order to provide enzymes for digestion and keep a general pH balance? And so that is definitely a thing that's out there at the moment, is talking a lot about pH balance and they generally talk about it in your blood. And so the pH balance of your blood is actually very highly controlled through breathing and through your kidneys. And so if it's actually kept within a very, very tight range. So I did look it up real quick. So it was 7.35 to 7.45. And so that's a very tight range. The pH of your blood is not going to go terribly alkaline or terribly acidic just based on what you're eating. Because again, it is monitored and controlled through your breathing and through kidney function. And so what you can affect is the pH balance of your stomach. And so eating more acidic foods, some people find that drinking lemon water, because it's acidic, helps them process foods better, just helps their digestion run a little bit smoother because you're creating a more acidic stomach environment. And so, that can be beneficial for to eat acidic foods before you eat for digestion purposes, but it's not actually going to change the pH of your blood, if that makes sense. All right. And then this person also asked about the zone diet. And so the zone diet, as well as the South Beach diet, if you guys have heard of either one of those, they are basically just following dietary recommendations. They're very healthy. They definitely fit within what we offer. You know, it's just offers a little bit more specifics and gives you a plan to follow, which some people really like. And so those are definitely two good diets. You know, the only thing is that, especially I noticed with the zone diet, you know, they do have a lot of supplements that you can purchase. And again, I would just take a hard look at why you want to take those, and then put a little time into seeing if they're actually effective, and talk about them with your doctor before you do. All right. And so then here's a person who says that they're going to be 50 in 6 months. So what are some things to do to ensure an active, productive, and empowered next 40 years? And so basically just continuing to eat a good diet, continuing to stay active. You know, that can be really important, especially around things like balance that start to make a bigger impact the older that you get. But yeah, just continuing to stay healthy and continuing to make positive choices, you know, that should help you out. All right. Okay, so then this next one is asking about how can you eat clean if the food is chemically treated? And what I think that they are getting at is a lot of the chemicals that are put on food. So basically like eating organic foods versus eating non-organic foods. And, you know, you can wash off a lot of what's on the skin of fruits and vegetables with a little diluted vinegar solution, which could be very helpful. You can also peel things like root vegetables. That helps take some of those chemicals off. But I mean, you're right. They are just out there in our environment, and we can avoid them as much as we can, the chemicals. But, you know, sometimes that's harder than others, unfortunately. So they also ask if you live in a big city and you go for walks or jog and the air is so polluted, are you sure that you're doing good by your body? And that's also another big, very good question, right? And that's it. And it's kind of personal, you know, like how bad is the pollution? Do you feel like there's no other place that you can get this physical activity? Do you feel like the physical activity is, after you run, you feel bad because of all the chemicals that you're breathing in, or if it's actually helping you? And if you feel like the pollution outside is too heavy, that it's not worth it, then I would just try to find places indoors that may work better for you. And then they also asked if it is important the time of day that you eat certain types of foods or the combination of these foods to influence metabolism and health. And so, you know, it's generally a good idea to eat, you know, smaller meals throughout the day. So like, you know, at least here it's really common to have 3 meals and 2 snacks, which is a good idea. But, you know, that's really a much more of a personal issue. But as far as combinations of foods, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about a little bit earlier with the raw foods diet and things being cooked. And similarly, certain things put together in different ways are more nutritious. So eating foods that are high in fat-soluble vitamins, so A, D, E, and K, with a source of fat, helps make those much more easily absorbable. And so you see this happening a lot in traditional diets. So if you look at an Italian or Mediterranean diet, a lot of times they're eating tomatoes with olive oil or with cheese. And so that's providing the fat, which helps you better absorb the vitamin A. Similarly, especially if you're consuming a vegetarian diet, but just if you're consuming vegetarian sources of proteins in general, they are incomplete. And so it's best to eat different types of foods together. So rice and beans is the classic example. And you see that in many cultures across the world that they have their own take on rice and beans, lentils and rice, corn and beans, things like that, that create a complete protein, which is better for your diet. Okay. And then the last one that I have on here is somebody who just wants to know if coffee is bad for their health if they drink it twice a day. And so coffee is another one of those that goes back and forth, whether people say that it's healthy or unhealthy, at least online, if you're looking online. But the general recommendations, I actually looked up, and what they're saying is for your average healthy person, 4 8-ounce cups of brewed coffee. And 8 ounces is very small. Most people don't get that. Most people are getting 16 or maybe 12. But that has about 400 milligrams of caffeine, which is the upper limit that's suggested just for general good health. This also equates to 5 servings of caffeinated soft drinks or tea. And again, just talking about servings, they're considering that to be 8 ounces, which is much smaller than usual. Generally for soft drinks, they come in 12-ounce cans, or people get much larger sizes at gas stations and other places. That also equates to 2 energy drinks. And so, to drink that amount as a max is best, but drinking 10 8-ounce cups of coffee per day is considered to be excessive and could actually have some health implications. All right, so let me just refresh this really quick, but I think this is all of the questions that you guys had. All right, so I believe that is it. So thank you all for bearing with us, especially through those few minutes of technical difficulties in the beginning. I hope this was helpful for you. We will have another one towards the end of the class, in which you can ask me, questions like this if you'd like, or questions maybe more related to the final exam, or just any information that you guys would like to know. I will put those websites where you can get really good, very accurate, evidence-based knowledge, just to try to help you guys out in making sure that you're getting information from the best sources and making the best decisions for you. And so again, thank you all, and I look forward to interacting with you guys more as the class goes on. Thanks.